everyone, and welcome back for another edition of Broncos Beat. I'm Alexis Perry, and joining me here tonight, we have Matt Boyer from Broncos TV, Cecil Lammey from 104.3 The Fan, and James Palmer from the NFL Network. Well, guys, this time last week, we were previewing the Broncos Week 5 matchup against the Patriots set for Sunday. But after a fourth positive COVID-19 test out of Foxborough, the game that was initially pushed back to tonight has now been postponed yet again to next Sunday. Yesterday, Coach Fangio met with the media to share how he initially felt after he heard the latest news Sunday morning.
You know, it's just part of the COVID season here that we're playing this season within, that there's going to be adjustments that have to be made. They're going to happen late. They're going to happen when you might not be prepared. I was prepared for this, and we're just going to roll with the punches and adjust. You know, I said my initial message to the team, but all the way back in training camp, was this was going to be an improvise and adjust season. And we're being called on to improvise and adjust, and we'll do that.
Well, Coach Fangio is maintaining a positive attitude towards the postponement of this week's game. But guys, I have to know, how did you react when you heard the news?
Well, Alexis, I think we've all gotten accustomed to waking up first thing in the morning, checking Twitter and seeing what has happened to the NFL schedule today. So did it come as a shock? To me, no, but it also reinforced the message that it's really going to take all of us, because if you look across the league at how many schedules have changed, it's not just the Broncos and the Patriots, it's also the Chargers, the Jaguars, the Dolphins. Everybody is feeling the effects of this schedule change. So I think that when you look at, or when you look back on this season, I think the fluid nature of everything is going to be the thing that I think about the most.
Yeah, I'm just glad we have football, honestly. Yeah. This is something where Matt mentions it. Like, every morning you wake up, you're kind of on eggshells. Like, well, what's going to be pushed back today? And then the domino effect of this, that was perhaps most surprising to me because of all the adjustments they made after that. This wasn't just a simple, like, play it next week and do this and that. I mean, they moved a lot to accommodate this contest for the Denver Broncos. So not necessarily surprised, but definitely the domino effect was larger than I thought.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing that jumped out at me, Alexis, is where you watched this and how quickly it actually came out, guys, with all of the changes that happened. I think you give the league a little bit of credit to where they figured this out extremely quickly. This process of putting together the schedule is maybe much more complex than the regular fan may not know at home, and what the time and effort that goes in to putting this schedule in place and making these adjustments is not easy. But the initial thing that jumped out at me is, once I knew it was getting postponed, was we're well into the idea of having an 18-week season. I think this week showed us now the information is out there to where if one of these teams are affected that no longer has a bye, Alexis, the week 18 coming into play is now much, much more prominent and probably almost a certainty moving forward. I think that was the first thing that jumped out at me, is that our season is probably going to be extended, and most likely not every team in some executives' minds are going to play 16 games this season.
James, how does the league come to the conclusion that a game should be postponed, whether it's a day or two, or in the Broncos case, a full week?
Well, they know there's going to be positive tests, right? Dr. Alan Sills has told us that, and teams are going to have them. Now, how do you deal with a positive test? Who got it, and where is the contact tracing? That's the biggest part. This was another player, right? So that has a close proximity, almost 100% certainty that they have been around other players, and you can't play the game. It's a 4 to 5 day incubation period. You saw when Stephon Gilmore tested positive, they knew some were going to come in several days, but they didn't know how it would play out. When you look at the situation in Kansas City, where they had a strength and conditioning coach test positive for COVID-19, they went through the contact tracing, saw that he was not within the proximity of any players on the Chiefs roster. They were able to continue with their game against the Raiders yesterday and play it. That's where it all comes into play, on how many guys could be possibly infected, yet they don't know yet. The contact tracing plays a really big part in this.
Okay, well, a number of players took to social media to express their feelings about the postponement, but Coach Fangio had a really good message to his team that might have put things into perspective just a little bit.
My message to them and to anybody is, you know, we were inconvenienced by this, but it very easily could have been flipped around to where we had the positive test and the Patriots were inconvenienced by it. You know, so I'm happy that the positive tests weren't in our building, but I'm under no illusion that at some point we might have a positive test or two and be the cause of a game getting moved down the road.
While the Broncos have been sticklers about following the COVID-19 protocol, I feel like Coach Fangio made a really good point that during a global pandemic, no matter how strictly you are following the protocol, the possibility that this could happen to any team, including the Broncos, is really, really high. So just take a moment, though, and put yourself in the player's shoes. How do you think you would feel getting notified as you're getting ready to fly out for the game that you prepared all week for, that game has now been pushed back a full week?
I think, Alexis, that, if I was a player, I'd feel like this was, unfortunate. Do I think it is unfair? I don't know, because as we mentioned already, this is affecting everybody. It's not like this is affecting just one team. So when you look across the league, I think that while, yes, the Broncos players probably felt like when they woke up Sunday morning, this is my bye week and I've practiced the entire week. Yeah, I would feel a little slighted, but this was a possibility. We knew this was a possibility coming into the season. The league and the Players Association collectively bargained things prior to the season, and they agreed, yes, there are going to be changes. They are unavoidable. And while, yeah, I am going to feel a little slighted, I'm not necessarily going to dwell on that fact.
Well, Matt brings it up. He brings up the proper perspective. I think players will initially think that's unfair, but then you get two things: control and perspective. What do players say all the time? And I think this is a great mindset. You control what you can control. You don't worry about the outside noise. You don't worry about it. You can't control this. We're all in this together. And if the NFL is doing this so that you can play a game, have that perspective of you're playing a game. There are people out there that can't pay rent. There are people out there that have been out of work for months now. So through all this, you look at it and you go, okay, on the grand scale of things, this is an inconvenience. Does it seem unfair at first? Certainly, if you're a player, you're going to think that. That's just human nature. But then when you get back to your football mindset of control what I can control, well, you can't control this. So worry about what you can control, and then have the perspective of, I'm getting paid quite handsomely to play a game, and there are other people out there that are really struggling. So, initially you're going to have those thoughts, but then when you step back and you think about it, just get in that football mindset and get ready to go for next week.
A couple of key points, Alexis, I want to make here. One, everybody's brought up the financial side of things. If your game is not postponed but canceled and you don't play the game, you don't get a game check. So I think guys are understanding that if games are postponed and moved, they're still having an opportunity to continue with their season, which is a great luxury, and the league has gone to great lengths to try to keep this season going. And Cecil's right. There is a larger perspective of this. And if you just have to start with Vic Fangio, I think he'd be the right one to tell the rest of his team. His daughter has had COVID. She is a military nurse. She is on the front lines. If that doesn't put it in perspective for his entire team, I don't know who else could probably do that for them. And then the other part of this is, when you talk about not being affected and being affected by something that you didn't do wrong, and the Broncos have not had tests, look at the Chargers. They have been affected with their schedule more than any other team. And their general manager, when asked about it, Tom Telesco said, if you can't be flexible in 2020, then you can't operate in 2020. So the general manager of a team that has nothing happen to his squad, yet they've been the most affected of any other team with these schedule changes, is willing to take this and be able to manage it. Everybody should know and operate in that same mindset in the way this year has gone for everyone and the way this NFL season has gone.